Well, yesterday I spoke with a source who's connected to one of the candidates in the Colorado Rockies front office situation, and they gave me some interesting insight into why the Rockies and these candidates might not have worked out. I'll share that coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Well, this is a show that I have been dreading, that I didn't want to have this conversation, Spencer. I didn't want to have the vent session. I felt like things were headed in the right direction. These last few weeks, we've been saying, hey, the Rockies are actually doing the right things, the right candidates. There's qualified people actually making a name for themselves, in this public search for a front office, and we might have something positive to talk about coming onto the show this week. Well, no. That is not the case. Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast. Saez, Spencer Smith, hanging out with you guys. And I don't know if this is a crash out yet. We're not quite in crash out territory yet, but it's not good. It's not good. And the optics of everything look quite bad. And I'm just, above all else, we'll dive into all of the depths of this, all the layers of this here in just a moment. I'm just bummed that we're back here once again. I know that it's the Rockies we're talking about. I know that their track record, none of us should ever have any hope. None of us should ever have purple tinted glasses on, ever, given the track record of the Rockies these last 10 years. However, it did feel like they were starting to turn a page. And so you and I kind of were holding our breath saying, hey, maybe this is the new beginning for us. And it's like PTSD, man. I hate that we have to sit here and have the same conversations that I thought we were done having.
Roughly 3 weeks of good news was 3 weeks too many for this franchise right now. And there's some comments. Luke, are we crashing out today or can we spin this positive? As I always do, I have a positive outlook on this. There's definitely going to be a lot of crashing out. Scott's got our show schedule dialed in, but it's unfortunate. And it's not surprising. Surprising is definitely not the word for this, but unfortunate and kind of just like, when you go back to that girl that's cheated on you 6 times over again and you're like, this time's going to be different. And you expect it to be different. And you walk in and you see that it's not different.
No,
it's not any different than we had kind of expected, even though we got positive directionally facing news for about 2 to 3 weeks in a row, and the word external just got us so going,
dude. It carried so much weight.
It turned us straight north.
It said this time it's different. I swear. You said you love me this time. It's gonna be different.
And now we just don't know. It's crashing out today, which we will do a little bit of, and the response from everybody on X and the response for everything. Of just the guys, the candidates dropping out, you'll drop some kind of insane knowledge on us regarding these reasons, which I think everybody should obviously stay around, tune in for, because this is like legit, very breaking news, essentially stuff that's coming out. And shout out to Christian for doing some digging and some work on this. But I'm not ready to fully crash out yet because we don't know what's going to happen. Is what's happening right now not great? Yes, of course it's not great. It doesn't look great. The optics are bad. We talked about the Rockies having an optics problem for 162 games and even in last offseason, and then firing their manager. And then finally we got some positive news, letting go of their GM and Bill Schmidt, and kind of cleaning house in the front office and saying there's going to be an external search. But I'm not ready to fully crash out. The only thing that would get me ready to fully crash out is if they took all this time, had these external candidates, and then end up hiring their, director of scouting for the USA and making him the general manager / president of baseball operations. That warrants a full crash out.
Or Clint Hurdle becoming the GM.
Exactly. I'm ready to wait. We're still in wait and see mode. How long this is taking, not good. The fact that 2 candidates dropped out, also not good. But the reality of the situation is, other than the fact it's taking a little bit longer and some of the news we've heard isn't great, they haven't hired anybody yet. Yeah. So you can't really crash out until they've hired someone.
No, I agree. It's bad optics, and that's why it's frustrating. And that's why I do think there are a lot of people on social media reacting so poorly, myself included, to this news, is that, it just feels like you're going backwards now. We were moving forward, and now for whatever reason, and I'll give some insight into that here in just a moment, we seem like we're moving backwards. And like I had said in our show open, I spoke with someone, a source who is connected to one of the candidates in this search, and one of the candidates who just dropped out of this search, I should say. And they gave some insight into the specific reason why, at least the candidate that they know, dropped out of the race. And this was what they said to me. They said the deal was hung up on the Rockies' desire to not put new contracts out there with an impending lockout and then have to pay those people. They were speaking not on players, but they were speaking on the desire to fire current staff and add additional staff. And now, if that is the case, if what my source is telling me is true, and this seems like a pretty reliable source, and also it adds up. It makes sense. We found out both of these candidates, one was given an offer, one was provided an offer and rejected the offer, and the other simply backed out. It makes sense as to why those two things would have happened. Patrick Saunders, 48 hours ago, posted a tweet saying, I just spoke with a very trusted source within the organization. All of the talks have been productive. The Rockies aren't looking at anyone different. Everything's business as usual. It's still between these two guys. And we found out literally moments later, I think the next morning, yesterday morning, that both of those candidates were no longer in the running. That, to me, given what my source says and also just the optics of everything going on, leads me to believe that the Rockies did and said something where both of these candidates said, yeah, I can't do this. This isn't enough, right? And we're gonna walk on this. Whether they didn't give them enough money, maybe they lowballed them on an offer, or like my source was saying, the deal was hung up on the Rockies' desire to not put new contracts out there with an impending lockout and having to pay those people. So the Rockies are saying, hey, we're assuming that there is going to be a lockout in 2027, and we're going to make our decisions today based on the possibility that there will be a lockout in 2027. And so we don't want to have to hire in, let's just say, more expensive people, because a lot of times when, a new GM comes in, they clear out all the old people, they bring in their new people. You have to hire these people, you have to sign new contracts. A lot of times if you're bringing in better people, they're going to cost a little bit more money. And seemingly, the Monforts do not want to do that. And that, to me, is a huge red flag. And that's where the crash out, although you're right, there's no official news yet. There's no official hire to crash out about yet. If what I'm hearing is true in that regard, it's not going to work. The Rockies will not be able to operate in that mindset. I'm going to look ahead towards this lockout and make our decisions based off that possibility. If that's really the way it's going to go, we're cooked, dude.
Yeah, because that's going to open this, because they're going to have to hire somebody to be the president of baseball operations or the GM, whatever the title is we want to give it is fine. But at some point they're going to have to hire that guy. And this happening throws up the red flag to the candidates like Saez, like Foreman, that were very qualified for this job and ready to step into a role like that, whether it's for the Rockies or any organization, really. It signals to the guys at that level that this is maybe not a job that's worth taking.
Yeah, changes the tone.
And then you have to go get these guys are pretty proven, I would say, in the MLB level. They're not proven as GMs, obviously, but that's kind of what we're looking for, is somebody to come out and prove themselves, change baseball at Coors Field at 20th and Blake. But now you're dropping, and essentially, by the looks of this, the optics of this, you're going to have to drop an entire tier lower and hire someone that's definitely maybe not ready for the job because of these restrictions that you appear to have put in place for the hiring of this and the autonomy that this candidate or this hire will have. And that's what's scary. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to totally crash out until we know who it is. and know who is running the baseball team. But now we definitely do know that what we talked about last podcast and what would you ask the Rockies if you were interviewing for the job, a lot of the things that are going to be asked for, you go into a new job interview and you ask for this amount of money per year, and you ask for some ability to, have a per diem when you go on trips and this and that, and you're getting told no. It's a scary thought to think that even if we do hire someone, which inevitably I'm going to be excited about. I'm sorry. I will be excited, especially if it's a certain guy that's come up in these talks. I'm going to be excited. I'm just telling you. I will be excited for that, but the back of my mind is still like nothing's really changed due to the fact that the Rockies have put serious shackles on whoever this is.
Yeah, and look, if I'm little Christian over here hearing these sorts of rumors, of these sorts of reports coming out, all of the other front office executives that could possibly be considered for these jobs are hearing the exact same things, right? Like this report, this idea of the fact that the Monforts are unwilling to get out of their own way when it comes to this. And I see Austin in the chat says Rocks are probably one of the teams pushing for a lockout, salary cap, etc. You're not wrong. I wouldn't say that they maybe are pushing for a lockout, but I think Dick Monfort is a very outspoken advocate of the salary cap. And I think he, along with the commissioner, especially now that the Dodgers won the World Series, which we'll talk about in the last segment of the show, but especially now with the Dodgers winning the World Series, I think they recognize that you're probably going to have to go through a lockout if there's any hope of beating the Major League Baseball Players Association in those upcoming trade deal negotiations. So although I don't think Monfort wants a lockout, I think he wants a salary cap enough where he's willing to sacrifice a lockout in order to get the salary cap, and so be it, and so forth. And that we've talked about this on the show before. I just have I have so much frustration with that mindset because, again, I go back to this idea. Let's just say you are convinced that there is a lockout coming in 2027, then get all your ducks in a row now. This is the time that matters. The variables, you don't know what you can control. When there's no baseball in 2027 and we're all sitting here twiddling our thumbs, you and I are doing taste tests of different foods on the Rockies
we're doing
show.
Snake drafts every week in the middle of the summer when we're supposed to have baseball going.
Yeah, exactly. Like if that's what's going to happen in 2027, there's a ton of variables that come with that. You got to have a stable foundation of your front office in place with a proper staff that deserves to be paid what they're being paid, and that's still rebuilding, and that's scheming and getting ready for when baseball will come back. Baseball will come back. It's not like this is going to be forever. It's not like baseball is just going to cease to exist. Baseball will come back. You got to figure all that stuff out now, and waiting until the year 2028 as a mindset is terrible. And I don't blame Sade and Foreman and any other candidate that we don't know of for turning them down, because if I had heard the same thing, man, I'd be thinking my reaction would be the exact same way.
Yeah, and when we talked about, I made it very clear on the show, and I've seen different things on X and Twitter, and so have anybody else that's online, that the Rockies' job is a coveted one, and not necessarily coveted, that's not the right word, a challenge.
Sure.
But that a challenge that wants to be taken on by certain people. But that's merely just talking about the idea that they haven't really been able to build a consistent winner on the baseball field. That has nothing to do with all of the restrictions that are behind the scenes that we'll never know about, and that are starting to come out. I mean, clearly, your news and that source is part of exactly what we're talking about, where we only see let's just pretend a GM, Bill Schmidt, we only see the guys that he signs, the guys that he drafts, and the guys that then the manager will put on the field. That's like the extent of what most fans see. And that's the extent of what the product is on the field and how well they play and how well our mood differs and does a roller coaster all season long with how they're winning or losing baseball games. But there's so much more to the actual job that we can't see and we'll never know. It's frustrating that we don't know, but we do know exactly what they're going through, in the fact of that's maybe not how they actually want to run the team. Who knows? Maybe Bill Schmidt was a great GM. he just had the shackles on him from ownership and the higher levels in the front office that he could just never do his job correctly.
Yeah.
You never know. And so it's just scary. It's a scary thought that you're going to have basically for lack of a better term, a neutered GM and or president of baseball operations coming into this franchise that we didn't think it could get worse, but now that door is back open.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate. Felix, we are going to talk about the Ottavino rumors. We'll kind of look at like next steps. Where do the Rockies go from here? Because it sounds to me like they're starting from square one with the front office search. So what are the next steps for them? And also, there's a specific variable that I wanted to talk about that I think they missed, they overlooked earlier in this year that would have allowed them to avoid all of this chaos that's happening right now. We'll get to that coming up after this first break. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. And I got to say, Toyota has been a part of my DNA since I could drive. I've been owning and driving Toyotas ever since I was, 15 years old, gotten my first car, and it was a Toyota, and still own a Toyota today. And I can't say enough good things about them. So whether you're into, let's say your thing is getting into a big truck like Spencer, getting into the Tundra or the Tacoma, Toyota's got great options for you there. Maybe you're more like me. Maybe you're someone who likes to go on road trips, get up into the backcountry. You want to go more the SUV route. I've got the 2024 Toyota RAV4. It is an absolute blast. I actually have the Adventure Series, so it's got the extra all-wheel drive with like different settings for snow and rocks and mud and all that kind of stuff. You can't go wrong with that. They've got the 4Runner. They've got the Highlander. So many different choices. They've got hybrid options to choose from, SUVs, sedans. So you really can't go wrong with Toyota. So if you were in the market to go buy a new Toyota, especially with winter right around the corner, head over to your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Also want to give some love and a huge shout out to our friends over at Game Time, because you just went to the Nuggets game actually the other day. And with Game Time, you can get great deals on any game, but especially NBA tickets. And I've been to the Avs game so far, been to the Broncos. I'm actually going to the Broncos game here coming up this Thursday, using the Game Time app to get our tickets for that. Haven't been to a Nuggets game yet though, and I'm thinking I might need to open up the Game Time app to snag some tickets here soon.
Got to hop on the Game Time app. Great zone. They have zone deals. They have a bunch of flash deals where you look. We got our tickets. We were in Houston this past weekend for Broncos Texans. We got our tickets on the Game Time app, and it actually only took. It's crazy how quick the process takes on Game Time, because we were going to tailgate before, and we were literally waiting until game time to get tickets. You can't even get in the tailgating lot without having game tickets.
Yeah.
So we had to end up like buying our tickets right there at the tailgate lot. We were going to wait another hour and a half, get a little closer to game time, see if we could find a really solid deal. But we got one. The lady was stern on not letting us into the massive tailgating lot with thousands of parking spaces until we had a game ticket to show her. So I hopped on the Game Time app, and within 2 minutes, I was in that stadium ready to rock.
I love it, man. Use that Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. I'm keeping an eye on my phone because we're seeing breaking news passing across all of sports, both football and Major League
NFL
Baseball.
trade deadline is going to have a lot of our
I have so many different accounts that I have notifications turned on right now. I'm not a big like Twitter notifications guy. I try to keep my Twitter kind of clean, but I've got like Patrick Saunders, Thomas Harding tweet notifications. I've got, John Heyman, Mark Feinsand, Jeff Passett. I mean, like I've got everyone just dialed up, dude. I'm like, but I keep getting all these breaking news alerts from, the Cubs just traded someone and blah, blah, blah. And it's a little, gives me a little jump scare every time. But I said before the break that there's a specific variable that I wanted to talk about that I think would have allowed the Rockies to avoid the headache that they're going through right now if they had done this. And that's the fact that this shouldn't be happening in the first place from a timing perspective. One of the few gripes that we've had over the last month or so, and we had said earlier that we felt pretty good about how the direction the Rockies were headed recently. We've given Walker credit that, it feels like the decisions that have been made have been at least pointed in the right direction. And so we couldn't critique anything like that, so we'd given them credit. The only gripe we've had recently, though, was the fact that the Rockies took kind of a while to at least I should say, Bill Schmidt for Bill Schmidt to resign, to announce the resignation of Bill Schmidt. And I think you could go even further than that. I think if the Rockies wanted to avoid the headache that they're experiencing right now trying to scramble and find a new GM before, like Burge says, the GM winter meetings that are coming up in a week, and then the actual winter meetings, the MLB winter meetings that are coming up in the first week of December, you should have started this process a long time ago. I get that you wanted to keep Bill Schmidt in place to do the draft, do the trade deadline, and fine. I actually don't have a lot of gripes with how Bill Schmidt handled both of those things. But I think the writing was on the wall. Everyone, including Bill Schmidt, knew that he was not going to be involved in the future of this team. And I know that the Monforts are so committed to their people. Again, they run this organization like a mom and pop donut shop, right? Like, they should have fired Bill Schmidt right after the deadline. And then you have months of planning, preparation. Look at what the Nationals did. The Nationals started over in the middle of the season, and they actually did it before the deadline. They went into their trade deadline and all of that without a GM in place. But now they have a front office foundation set in place, and they're set up and they're ready to go. I just think, and maybe we haven't been talking about it enough, the Rockies, once again, took way too long. And if you had been able to hire Saez, or if you had been confident that you were going to hire those two guys, or Foreman or Saez or someone like that, and that you weren't going to have any issues like that, maybe that's different. But now your backs are against the wall and you're scrambling, and it feels like they might have to start rushing things now. And that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, they're slowing down to be rushed. And that's never a good way to try to find the next leader of an organization that is so down bad right now. Like, everybody in this chat right now is a Rockies fan, hopefully. Well, if you're not, welcome to the DNVR Rockies show. But they're Rockies fans that just want nothing more than to have something positive to look forward to. And that doesn't even mean the product on the field in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, this is a very low bar that we're all operating with in the positivity realm and trying to find a reason that this could be good, or hope that this will change the trajectory of the franchise over the next 5 to 6 years. And we were kind of heading towards that light at the end of the tunnel, and now this train has basically stopped. And not only has it stopped, it feels to be going backwards before it can start getting to go forward again. And it's not a fast moving train. We all have seen how long this has taken, and you start it going backwards now. You're losing the ground that you already made up, and then you have to remake up that ground. Mm-hmm. And you hope that now, like, there was some positivity in the fact of how long it was taking, that maybe they're really doing as much as they can to try to find the right candidate. Sure. But now, if they take long again, it just feels like incompetence. Mm-hmm. And if they do it quick, it's not going to feel good either. So right now they're in a no-win situation unless this name and they hire a GM or president of baseball operations. That's just a slam dunk in our eyes. That there's a no-win situation for that.
There's another part of this that bugs me as well, and I'll actually get to that in just a moment. I did see Will in the chat say Kyle Farmer option was a decline. Yes, the Rockies did just confirm. Thomas Harding said the Rockies have declined their end of a $4 million mutual option on infielder Kyle Farmer for the 2026 season. Farmer will instead get a $750,000 buyout and head into free agency. Fine, that's good.
Good. That's good news.
Yeah, we'll take that. They handled that well. We are going to talk later in the show about who's making these decisions right now, because that's been a big topic of discussion over the last couple of days. Is the Rockies don't have a front office in place, so who's the one declining this option from Kyle Farmer? What about the Tyro Estrada deal yesterday? Like, who's making these decisions? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the gripe that I have as well with the Rockies is we all know how bad their optics have been for really forever, since the Nolan Arenado trade at least. The Rockies have had terrible optics, and it's just gotten worse since then. These last couple of years, it's kind of come to a head. And it felt like a lot of that had to do with the two people in charge. Dick Monfort, obviously number one, and then Bill Schmidt. Two people who are not very vocal with the media, not very communicative, and not very transparent. And you feel like Walker comes in here and albeit not super communicative with the media yet, but it felt like, hey, he has more of a pulse on what the fans want, what the fans are expecting, what the media is expecting, and it felt like they were headed in the right direction. I think the Rockies are missing out, and a lot of this optics that we're seeing over these last 48 hours or so, these bad optics that we're seeing with the Rockies, I think could be at least mitigated if Walker Monfort were to get on his phone and text Patrick Saunders, let's just say, or Thomas Harding, or one of the other longtime reporters for the Rockies, and give a couple quotes and say, hey, we know that these candidates are no longer. Yes, we're confirming these candidates are no longer involved in the interview process. We are committed towards finding an experienced external candidate that we can blah, blah, blah. Like, give a statement, right? You don't even have to go put out a statement, but allow that to get out there to the world. Because right now, all we're doing, aside from some of the things we're hearing from our sources, is we're just speculating. And unfortunately, the Rockies track record's so bad that 99.9% of all speculation is going to be negative. We are going to assume the worst. Rockies fans especially are going to assume the worst. So if the Monforts care about the optics, which I believe at least Walker does, you got to get out in front of this, man. You got to go call up one of the reporters. Hey, you can contact me if you want. I'm available as well.
Give
send
your
me
phone
an email.
number out.
Yeah, he says send me an email, Christian@thednvr.com. And get something out there to the world to say, hey, look, yeah, this didn't work out, but we're committed to moving forward with this, and this, and these are our values. And, I think that says a lot to the fans. I think that says a lot to the other candidates. I just think the lack of transparency is doing nothing to help the Rockies right now.
Yeah, because everything that we and anyone out there hoping for the Rockies to be good is assuming the worst is happening.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing good to assume from anything that comes out news-wise from this team right now. And so when nothing comes out at all you're doing is, it's like, I'm on my relation game today, but 3 a.m. when you start thinking about work or your life, it's never good, is it? You're laying awake in bed and those things always seem way worse than they actually are. Once you're awake and you start thinking about the same thing, you're like, can't believe I couldn't sleep over that. But that's where Rockies fans are. They're up at 3 a.m. with the absolute worst thoughts about everything that's happening, because not only have they given us no reason to not feel that way for the past 3 to who knows how long, basically 7 years, but they're not talking about they're not talking about their feelings. Mm-hmm. They're not talking about what they're doing, and they're not giving us a statement. They're not giving us any information. All the information we're hearing and seeing is this guy declined the job. This guy dropped out of the search. But instead of even just something simple from Walker of we mutually agreed that this wasn't the right guy for the job, or we are looking for other candidates and we have a few other ideas in mind that weren't at this level yet. Yeah. Just anything.
Yeah. And people are going to spin it, however which way they're going to spin it, but at least then you are taking initiative and showing that you're still extremely committed to making the right decision here, not just throwing your hands up and saying, these guys, F them. We don't care about them. They're moving on. We're going to come in and we're just going to do things our way. No, show that there is a balance in here. The transparency thing is really frustrating to me. It's been like that for a long time, but nothing appears to have changed yet. And again, until we start seeing things, concrete evidence of things changing, unfortunately, we and also the Rockies fans are going to assume the worst. And it's a tough spot for us to be in. It's a tough spot for Rockies fans to be in. We got to pause for our second break. After the break, though, I wanted to get to Felix, your question, and also probably a lot of your guys' questions. Adam Ottavino, his name's been tossed around. Is he a good fit for the Rockies? Is that the Rockies settling? Who else could be in the mix for this? The Rockies are back on square one. What does that mean for the remainder of this GM search for the Rockies? Let's dive into that debate coming up in just a moment. All right, I want to give some love to our friends over at Coors Light because it is a great time to be enjoying a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. I know, we always talk about the good vibes of drinking Coors Light when it's summer. When the mountains are blue, it's cold, it's refreshing. You go stand up on the rooftop and watch the Rockies come back from down 9-0 in the first inning, and you feel like you're on top of the world with your nice, refreshing, cold Coors Light. But look, it's football season now. It's even basketball season now. And there's never a bad time to enjoy a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. So whether you're out in a Nuggets game watching Jokic be a basketball god, or whether you are watching the Avs try to figure out how to win a game in overtime, Coors Light's the way to go, man. Coors Light is the best light beer out there, and there is no better beer. My entire fridge, I've I've given up on doing bullpen games too. I mean, it's just Coors Light. It's all Coors Light. So I love it. I love it. You got to make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, based right here in our backyard, Golden, Colorado. Also want to give some love to our friends at Dick's Sporting Goods, because if you are in the market to grab some, I don't know, maybe you're going to get some new golf balls like our buddy Scott in the chat, or maybe you want to get some new shoes. Maybe you said, hey, got to get some new boots or some running shoes, or heck, maybe if you want to even go get some cool DNVR swag. Well, Dick's Sporting Goods is the place to go. They've got the best top-notch apparel, sporting gear, all the good stuff. I can't say enough good things about Dick's Sporting Goods. They've got all the great brands like Nike, Adidas, FP Movement, Calia, DNVR, and more. And so I'm so excited that we are partnered with Dick's Sporting Goods, as you call them, the good Dicks. Dick Montfort, a little bit less so. Dick's Sporting Goods, much better Dicks.
Yeah, we spend 59 minutes of the show talking about the bad Dicks. Let's talk about the good Dick for at least a minute.
I love it. Get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dick's. All right. Where do you go from here?
That's kind of true for the Rockies too, isn't it?
It is
like
true.
This whole, we could tagline anything. This Rockies president of baseball operations search starts at Dick's.
It does.
Because he's the one with his hands in all of this, controlling all of this. As much as we want to believe Walker is a big part of this, and we know he is, this all screams either Walker's the exact same as his dad, or his dad's still controlling more than we had hoped.
Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect segue into this next conversation, because we've got to talk about Adam Ottavino. His name popped up in this. But the report came out saying that Dick Montfort has had conversations. It wasn't clear how formal those discussions were. It could have just come up in conversation, or it could have been a legit phone call saying, hey, how interested are you in this position? We don't know. And I don't have a source that knows that, and I don't think anyone else here in Rockies world has a source that knows that exactly yet. So right now, again, we're speculating, but the report is that Adam Ottavino and Dick Montfort had a discussion and are still in contact about the front office opening, specifically the general manager or president of baseball operations opening. And before we even dive into whether Adam Ottavino would be a good candidate for this, I think the thing that stood out to me most about that when I saw that report come out is, why is Dick Montfort having these discussions? We've all known that Walker Montfort was kind of the guy who has been put into the driver's seat, right? Dick Montfort is theoretically taking a little bit of a step back. He's kind of trying to distance himself from the decision-making process. He put his son Walker in charge, and Walker has been kind of the face of the changes. Now, again, this could just be Dick Montfort and old buddy Adam Ottavino having a nice little phone call chat, just saying hi and saying, hey, what's your take on this front office gig? It could be as simple as that. But if it's a more formal discussion, if I'm Walker, I'm a little irritated, right? Like, this is my thing. You put me in charge. Dad put me in charge. This is my search that I'm kind of spearheading. And yes, we all know Dick Montfort is involved. It's no surprise that he's involved at least a little bit. But I don't like the idea that there's conversations going on. If it had said Walker Montfort had that discussion with Adam Ottavino, I don't know, maybe my thoughts on it still kind of remain the same, but at least it separates, where you're like, hey, this is a Walker decision now. And it's maybe he's trying to get a little creative here. But I don't like that Dick is having those kind of conversations.
No, and hopefully it is just because Dick was obviously the owner when Adam Ottavino was here. Walker was probably still in a mid to low level exec job or whatever job he had at the time when Adam Ottavino was pitching here. So maybe it's a relationship thing at this time. But I also find I'm stoked for Ottavino. Let me put it that way. That was the guy that I said earlier. I will be excited if they hire him for some reasons I'll get into. But the idea that Adam Ottavino is this news of him having a chat with Dick Montfort is leaking out is semi-interesting to me, in the fact that the Rockies are not publicly saying they have other candidates. As of this moment, we're doing this podcast and this video. We don't know if there's other candidates, and we can't even call Adam Ottavino a candidate based on the information we've seen. It's just a conversation. But it is interesting that got leaked, if you will, or somebody wanted the fans to know that Adam Ottavino is having conversations, and maybe that's just a stall tactic. Maybe that's like hey, we're not doing nothing. We're not sitting on our hands here. Like when your mom runs in here, I'm going to go with an analogy again. When your mom runs in and you're supposed to be doing the dishes and you like quickly run up and start like washing one plate to make it look like you've been doing something. That's kind of what the news of this leaking feels like, because as we heard the whole time, there were other candidates. The only two names that got released were Saez and Foreman, but there was quote unquote other candidates. And now it's like, oh, we're having a conversation with a guy, which could be nothing, could be something. But I'm actually excited for Adam Ottavino. And I think the reason I'm excited, so our boy Luke Hall, Oak Tree Status on Twitter, great follow.
Great follow.
He tweeted yesterday, so this was the Tim Healy tweet originally. Adam Ottavino has spoken with Rockies owner Dick Monfort about the team's head of baseball operations opening. And then Luke quote tweets that with, remember that Adam Ottavino revived his career by visiting Driveline and then implementing their data-driven approach on his own in a self-made pitching lab in New York, because the Rockies as an organization were interested in developing analytically. And so, number one, Adam Ottavino's analytics-driven. He re-taught himself how to pitch and had one of the nastiest, at the time it was a slider, now it's called a sweeper, in the entire MLB. He had success at Coors Field, was one of the best Rockies relievers for multiple years, and he's an analytics-driven mind. And that it excites me from that aspect of, I really like the idea of now for the Rockies, it doesn't make as much sense, but I like the idea of a former player being a GM or making decisions on players and a decision on a roster. Now, does he have any experience? No, we've all talked about that. Does he have the experience from a front office role? No. Does he have experience from being on the mound 60 feet, 6 inches away from home plate at Coors Field and having success? Yes. And so that's what gives me a little bit of hope in the Adam Ottavino specific realm, is he's done it himself. And he reinvented himself by going and using analytics and figuring out how to get back to being the Adam Ottavino he was for a couple of years. And so that does give me a little bit of hope. What sucks about this whole situation is, if let's say the Rockies hire Adam Ottavino as their GM, I'm going to be stoked about it, but there's part of me that still will feel, and any guy they hire, from any name from the next greatest GM in the MLB, like a Saez or Foreman could have been, to, their bat boy getting the GM job at this point. Like, you're going to feel like it was a second choice, or somebody that you didn't necessarily want at first. You didn't necessarily want to offer the job at first, but now you're resorting to that. And the only thing that I could think of that not being the case in our minds is if they hired someone from the Blue Jays or the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. And they were like, hey, we're going to let you kind of finish out this World Series, great World Series, which we'll talk about, but we're going to let you, not release your name, let's say, and not leak your name and say, all right, you finish your season, you go win the World Series, and then we'll have more intense discussions. But it doesn't appear like that's the case. So now they're going to, they've texted this girl on their phone twice. She didn't answer. They got to go to 3 and 4 and 5 and try to get that Friday night scenario going down, because that's what it looks like.
The backup options. I see the direction you're headed with this. I really do. And you're right. Adam Ottavino, I think, could be a good front office piece to the Rockies' overall puzzle. But you're using your relationship analogies. I'll try to paint the picture here of a pie, right? There's a pie here, and let's just say this pie represents the Rockies front office.
Is it a Mountain Dew Baja Blast pie?
Yeah, something like that. You get this big old pie, and the front office, each different piece is built up of different pieces of the front office. You've got, the front office staff. You've got data and analytics. You've got the finances. You've got the trade deadline. You've got free agency. You've got draft and development. You've got all of these different pieces that make up a successful front office. And I think Adam Ottavino represents one piece of that pie, that front office pie. He would be good as a assistant GM or a special what do they call Clint Hurdle and advisor to the
a special advisor to the assistant to the GM.
yeah, exactly.
Whatever title you want to give it.
That kind of thing. Adam Ottavino, I think, would be absolutely perfect for those kind of more niche front office roles. But like Dwayne says in the chat, he says, former Rockies player, 0 GM experience, will follow Monfort's rules due to lack of said experience. Perfect candidate. You're not wrong, Dwayne. This is Adam Ottavino doesn't have the front office experience to fix the depth, the layers of dysfunction that currently reside within the current Rockies front office system. You need a new staff. You need to revamp data and analytics. You need a new approach to the trade deadline. You need a new approach to free agency and development, drafting and development. You need to go through the process of hiring a new manager. Adam Ottavino is technically an eligible Major League Baseball player.
He pitched in April.
Like, this is not a disrespect to Adam Ottavino, who I think, again, could be a good piece to the front office pie that would make up one day the Colorado Rockies front office. But he is not the main guy. He should not be the guy that the Colorado Rockies hire. And if they do hire Adam Ottavino, again, no disrespect to Otto, but that is settling, in my opinion. And that, to me, is no better than an internal candidate, because an internal hire, because you need someone who has experience in a front office at the general manager role, assistant general manager role, within a president of baseball operations system. You need someone who has the experience, because there's so many fires this new person has to come in and put out. And you need to have the depth of experience and knowledge to come in and say, I've seen how our organization put out that fire. And I've seen how, my former organization did that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be able to have some ideas to fix these kind of things. I think Adam Ottavino, like Dwayne says, feels like the type of move that, because he doesn't have the experience, he would just end up saying probably yes to everything from Dick Monfort or from Walker Monfort. And it would just be the same cycle that we've been in. So again, no disrespect to Adam. And I totally agree with you, Spencer. I think he would serve a good purpose in the front office, just not the main spot.
Yeah, and that's extremely fair criticism / putting it out there that he is a good piece to the pie. Now, he's going to have a very low ceiling, or a very low floor as a GM if this is the hire. He also could have a high ceiling, but hopefully any of these guys have a high ceiling. It does scream fairly internal, but the only internal part of it that I'm excited about is the fact that he has had success here.
Yeah.
It'd
be like hiring Charlie Blackmon or Matt Holliday.
Right, exactly. It's a little bit of a fan favorite move, which maybe is not the right way to go. Maybe I'm just so purple glassed out that I'm like I just remember Adam Ottavino pitching for us and how dominant he was for a long time. And just thinking, well, he's created this ability to pitch here. Maybe he can turn our pitching staff completely around from one of the worst in baseball. Like, that's where my positive mind goes, but that's a very, very small part of my mind. I just like to speak it on the Rockies because the negative is everywhere. And I'm not saying it's not warranted, but it's Adam Ottavino does excite me from multiple different opportunities that he's taken in his career and where he's been, and the fact that it's a complete unknown, and that's scary, but it's also unknown is opportunity.
But the reality remains the same for the Rockies. Where do you go from here? I mean, Ottavino, sure, we don't know if he's a real candidate or not. He's just had conversations with the Monforts. But if it's not Ottavino, which I don't believe it will be, I do think the Monforts probably want to go someone more front office focused. But if it's not Ottavino, who is it? Who else is available? And I mentioned before at the beginning of the show, if you guys are tuning in late to this show, I mentioned off the top of the show that I spoke with a source yesterday who has a connection to one of the candidates, and he said that the deal between these last two candidates was hung up because the Rockies, basically on the Rockies' desire to not put new contracts out there with an impending lockout and then having to pay those people. He was talking about, the candidate's desire to fire current staff and add additional staff. So again, if I'm hearing these reports coming out from my sources, that means that all the other front office candidates out there, or possible candidates, are hearing the exact same things. It's a small community in the Major League Baseball front office, and I guarantee you they all talk. They all have communications with each other. And so where do you go from here? Who wants to take this job? You and I have had this conversation so many times of this. We've tried to convince you guys this is a job that people are going to want to take. People want to be the one who solves the Rockies equation, who can win at elevation. And also, for most of the people, including Matt Foreman, including Amiel Saadeh, even James Click, it's a promotion from their jobs that they currently have. This is the main person, the big decision maker. You become the president of Rockies decision making, of a Major League Baseball team's decision making. That's a promotion. That's a big opportunity for every single person within Major League Baseball. And that's the point that we've been trying to make for, weeks now. And now I'm looking at it and I'm saying, man, I don't know who's going to want to take this job anymore. And it's not because the job isn't good, but I think the Monfort's optics through all of this have taken a huge hit through this whole search process.
Which, if that's even possible,
Yeah.
if it's even possible for their public view, either from a fan perspective or another organization or another front office perspective, could get any lower, it appears to have in the last 2 weeks.
But you thought, with Walker coming in, I think you were able to think from the outside that, hey, maybe things are going to be a little bit different because Walker is in charge, and maybe he's going to create enough separation from his dad to allow us to do things the right way. Well, now, from the reports that we're hearing coming out, it sounds like, I don't think Walker's the one making these calls. It sounds like Dick really still has his hands in the cookie jar here. He's still keeping a very prominent, control over how all of this is going down. And if that's the case, then who wants to take that job? Who wants to just be fighting with ownership day in and day out? We know James Click left the Astros after their World Series because of that, right? No one wants to deal with that. So I don't know. I don't know where you go from this. We got to pause for a quick moment. After that, who's handling off-season decisions right now for the Colorado Rockies? We'll talk about that, and also a little World Series talk coming up next. All right. To just finally kind of wrap up all of this venting, this reacting to everything that we're hearing. Again, we'll continue to keep our ears down to the floor to listen and see what other new reports, new information comes out. I don't know how long this is going to take. And that's the kind of scary part now is theoretically the Rockies are starting from scratch. And as we've seen in the chat a couple times, and you guys all know, you've got GM meetings coming up. You've got waiver and free agency starting now, yesterday. So things are getting done, which will bring us to our next point here in just a moment. And then you've got winter meetings, which we really care about because we're going to be there. So
we've joked before the show that we booked our trip to winter meetings. We'll both be there December 8th and 9th.
Yep, 8th and 9th.
And we may just be sitting at a table with a bunch of writers from the Colorado Rockies.
Who are we going to talk to?
We don't have a manager. Ourselves, just a big, CJ. I'm not going to say that on the show, but that's essentially what it is amounting to, what it could be at this point, because they're going backwards at this exact moment.
And they're not going to fake it. I mean, Warren Schaefer is not the manager. He's not going to go out to winter meetings if he doesn't have a contract, if he's not getting paid. And I don't blame him. And, part of winter meetings, the main part of winter meetings is going out there and you get to have, these very formal conversations with the front office. It's the only time of the year that, at least in the last couple of years, that we got to actually talk to Bill Schmidt. We'd sit in a hotel room with him and get to ask him any question you want. That's what winter meetings are. Same thing with the manager. And it's why you and I booked our trip to go to winter meetings, because it's like, hey, there's probably going to be some important stuff to talk about during this winter meetings. And I still believe that it will. But at the moment, we're a month away from winter meetings. And the Rockies feel like they're starting over on this whole front office thing. And nothing else, even if they, we're talking about this from our perspective. Obviously, the Rockies don't care about us. But from an actual organizational perspective, you're missing out on this free agency stuff that's happening right now. Who's making these decisions? What's going on? There's baseball stuff happening. You got to get this front office figured out, man.
Yeah. Dwayne's comment's great. Maybe we should do another set of interviews of just other front offioses and see what it's like to do an interview and then go back and restart this process.
Compare it. Yeah, exactly. They're the what do they call that? And for science, like Dwayne says, they're the test. That's how it is. I I think about who's making the decisions right now for the Rockies. And I if I had to guess, I don't actually know, but if I had to guess, it would probably be a committee. You know, the Monforts obviously are going to have their hands in that. You'd probably think Chris Forbes, Sterling Monfort, you know, director of scouting. Those guys are probably some of the smaller front office names who are still there in the analytics department. Those kind of things are probably still in that stuff. So there's nothing like mind blowing. But again, you don't have your leader. It's like being in the military and you don't have your commander, right? Like, yes, you can still function as a unit, but you don't have your commander. Like you feel like you're kind of trying to figure things out on the fly. And that's where I feel like the Rockies are right now. Yes, some of their decisions are a little bit easier because it's smaller players. Yeah. Do I really care too much about the Kyle Farmers, the Tyro Estradas? Yeah, you still got to take care of those guys. You got to make sure you're setting things up correctly. But you're not making huge decisions right now. But again, it just comes back down to you're missing out on moments. Every day that passes is another day where you're just falling behind.
Yeah, in the fans' eyes, and also just in your organizational setup of heading into 2026 with some sort of different organizational direction. You can't see that right now.
Yeah.
You're walking in the woods with no glasses.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
What's up, Noah? Welcome in. I gotta admit, right before we kind of change gears here in just a second, I did get a little scammed yesterday. I got. So did Noah, and that's why I say that, because Noah and I were both on the same page. There was a fake, although very real looking account that posted that Dante Bichette had conversations with the Rockies, and I thought I had vetted it and been like, oh yeah, this looks pretty legit. Guy's got like 20,000 followers and looks pretty real to me. Posted it up and immediately was like, damn it,
Got it.
got me. He got me. So I gotta put my hand up. That was on me. That was on me. We got. It's a tough season for all of us right now. Tough time of year for Rockies fans, Rockies media. We're all just trying to figure this out. I feel bad for Patrick Saunders too, because you know that John Heyman report came out the other day saying, you know, that Sade and Foreman were no longer, or might no longer be candidates, and that the Rockies might be looking in a different direction. And Patrick Saunders comes out and says, I just spoke with a really trusted source that says there's no truth to that. Everything's fine, business as usual in Rocky Land. And then the next morning, it's like, nah, maybe they were right. It's like, you know, we're all just sitting here trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think, well, including the Rockies, I think.
Including the Rockies.
It's not even just us outside the org. It's everyone inside the org.
Does anyone know what's happening with the Rockies? Can we start putting a poll out there of what do you guys think is happening with the Rockies? Because I don't think it's very good. That's for sure.
We need another Kevin. I don't think he's in the chat today. I haven't seen him. We need another email to Dick. We need another. That's like still going around.
And the fact that he's still responding.
Tariq Skubal scenario is still going. I saw it on my Instagram feed yesterday
Yeah.
from like Talking Baseball or something. Hilarious.
It's so good.
Nobody knows what's going on. We're just trying to do the best to talk through it because that's what we do.
And it's like therapy. Should we start calling this like the DNVR Rockies like therapy session?
Yeah, Alyssa, can we get a new like couch setup in here? Maybe like a therapist's couch and like a nice chair. Like that's what we need.
I'll be laying down on the couch.
We need to request next, if there's not a GM hired by next week's show, we will do the show in the main studio.
Yeah.
And instead of just two chairs, we'll do one chair and the couch. And I'll lay down and you sit on the chair and we'll just talk through this all.
I'll bring my circle glasses. We'll look real good. We'll bump. Whose show's going right now? What is it? Broncos?
Yeah, Broncos, whatever.
What do the Broncos need their show for? It's not like they have any important stuff going on. Only the second best team in the NFL, but whatever. But speaking of general sports, I don't want to finish this show without talking about a little bit about the World Series, because it was a diabolical World Series. I was talking to Brandon Spano, our CEO, before the show, and he came out and we were kind of having a conversation, and he was like, by far, best postseason I've ever watched in my entire life. He's like, it could arguably be one of the best postseasons we've ever seen in the history of baseball. And yeah, you could probably make some arguments here or there. You could go down the rabbit hole, I'm sure, but I mean, when you break it down, you've got a pretty good argument though. You got multiple game sevens, multiple series went into their final games, couple game sevens. You had multiple, God, 13, 14, 15 to 18 inning games that you had. So you had, arguably the best baseball player that's ever set foot on the face of the earth playing at peak level, pitching, hitting, doing all the crazy stuff. You had the absolutely hated Dodgers that have, America and the country of Japan rooting for them. Then you've got, the entire country of Canada with the Blue Jays playing the most insane World Series Game 7 I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys saw this. It got more views than Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So for those of you who say baseball is dead, no, you just haven't jumped on the hype train yet. It was electric. I'm actually really sad that we don't have any baseball anymore. It was a joy to be involved in.
Yeah, if you could make these changes as quick as possible, how great would it be to get 11 game series and get 2 to 3 more games, 4 games maybe out of the unbelievable stuff from both of those teams, and just a lot of fun storylines, a lot of kind of no name, even though the Blue Jays payroll is very high and we all know that, and that was the Bo Bichette coming back and then hitting the home run. You got random guys pitching, and then you got the Game 7 where they come out before the game and say Yamamoto's available after throwing 96 pitches, and he comes out and gets the win, ends up winning the MVP. Just an all around. It does, if you take away the name Dodgers of that, everything that we saw in that World Series was unbelievable cinema.
Mm-hmm. No, I was going to say, because Dwayne says stupid Dodgers. I agree. I am bummed. Even with the Blue Jays beating my Mariners, I was still rooting for the Blue Jays. I can't ever root for the Dodgers. I root for the Yankees before I'd root for the Dodgers. But I still have nothing but good things to say about this World Series. Even with the Dodgers winning the World Series, I still was I would give it to me again. Do it again. I want to see more of that.
Again.
That was, I know, more.
Again.
It's like that Star Wars meme, more. That's how I felt. It was just peak baseball every single night. I kind of think the Blue Jays were the better team, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think the Dodgers were just clutch. The Dodgers had a bunch of veterans that just were clutch when they needed to be. I have no complaints. Even with the Dodgers winning the World Series, it was electric. And again, I've said this before, anytime I watch the playoffs this year, but especially the World Series, I think to myself, we're 50 years away from the Rockies ever even looking close to being that good. The Blue Jays are so good. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They're always going to be good. They're always going to be there. But the Blue Jays, you watch their 1 through 9 guys, and you're just like, what a dream. What a dream. We have one guy who could maybe fit in there into that lineup as a backup in Hunter Goodman. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
They hit you with 1 through 9. Unfortunately, former Rocky Jeff Hoffman went, you can take the man out of the Rockies, but you can't take the Rocky out of the man. He blows the save. Miguel Rojas, who hit that home run, doesn't have a single home run off a right-handed pitcher all year.
Yep.
And
he was
waits
also
till the literal, would it be, 63rd inning of the World Series, and he goes yard. And the cinema from the entire World Series, outside of the team that ended up winning and the outcome of that, was unbelievable baseball for 7 straight games that you could not have predicted.
And I'll go on record and say, I do think the matchup that we got with the Dodgers, with Shohei, with the Blue Jays, with Canada, it was the best possible matchup for baseball. And I know the whole lockout thing is coming 2 years from now because the Dodgers won the World Series. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm trying not to be like Dick Monfort and make decisions today based on the possibility of what's going to happen a year and a half from now. But just for the sheer love of baseball, it was the best possible matchup. Yes, the Mariners, I would have loved the Mariners as a Seattle guy. I would have loved the Mariners to be in it. But you had the Blue Jays versus the Dodgers, 2 biggest teams, or at least some of the biggest teams in baseball. It couldn't have gotten any better than that. So real quick, we're going to finish up this conversation here, but we are heading into overtime. So if you're watching on television, head over to thednvr.com or to YouTube to continue our conversation as we wrap things up here. But yeah, I'm not even worried. Yes, there's not going to be baseball in 2027 allegedly now because of the Dodgers, but again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It was just nice to have some good baseball.
Yeah, it'll be nice to at least see baseball. the 2026 season may be just that much more fun because we know it's getting taken away from us. You know, we got to just enjoy each of our 43 wins. Like it's the last one you ever see, because it may be for a while.
All 3 of our wins in the month of April. And yeah, we'll see. Do you know why 2026 baseball season is going to be better than ever?
The Rockies may have a new GM.
We'll see about that.
Allegedly.
Yeah. To be determined. Because we're going to have World Baseball Classic in March.
Yes.
So we have a short, compact offseason. We got my team Puerto Rico going up against the Dominican Republic, Team Mexico with Jimenez out of the bullpen. We've got Team USA with the big dumper and Judge. I think Team USA is unstoppable, if I'm being completely honest. I could not be more exciting for our version of the 4 nations and the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, that's March.
Yep.
So
before spring training.
Before spring training. Oh,
I can't remember how they do it, if they like push spring training back or if spring training's happening and they just take some guys away from spring training and let them go play. But it's around that same time.
It'll be fun too, because I love spring training for the first like 7 games, because you're like, oh my God, the Rockies are back. Like, I get excited. But after that, you're like, all right, let's just get to the real games. Like a 30 plus days of this is just a lot. But having the World Baseball Classic on and really intense, high level, like borderline World Series level for some of these guys that will never get to play in a World Series level baseball for a week or 2 before and or in the middle of spring training will be electric.
I would love to say that the Rockies could possibly see a player on the World Baseball Classic, but you might see Tovar on Team Venezuela. Hunter Goodman, no chance. You've got Cal Raleigh, maybe a backup. He could be a backup catcher.
Well, Will Smith's probably
Will Smith's probably that guy too. Yeah. So it would, if anyone, it would probably be Tovar. But either way, it's going to be exciting. Scott says in the chat, pitch challenge system. Yep, that's definitely needed. There was some.
Can't wait for the hat tips. There was a few that would have been nice in the Game 7 of the World Series. That ref was. That umpire, excuse me, I called him a ref.
I almost corrected you.
That umpire was struggling a little bit, especially on some huge calls.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, we're going to wrap things up here on the show. We'll be back tomorrow with the Denver Sports Podcast. I will be back, I should say, tomorrow with the Denver Sports Podcast. Going to be talking to our boy Hank about some Broncos trade deadline stuff and a little Broncos action. So that'll be fun. But hopefully we get some news. We said this last time. I'm going to keep saying this every single time until it happens. Hopefully we get some news before next show, and hopefully it's better than the news we got before this show, because by God, this was depressing.
Yeah, we got news, all right. We just got Rockies level news.
We got rocked on our news. Thank you to Alyssa for producing, making us look good here today. We'll see you guys next time. This was the DNVR Rockies podcast. Have a good week, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.